invite you to join me in making a wonderful and sweet French toast casserole. I show you a small size. This is a 9-inch pan. The thing about this is everyone cuts off a small sliver of this, puts some jam or powdered sugar on it, a little whipped cream, and you end up doing other things in your buffet if you would like to. This by itself also makes an absolutely gorgeous breakfast. You make it the day before, you let it refrigerate overnight, and in the morning you pop it in the oven for 35 minutes for this size, about 45 to 50 minutes on the larger one, and you have yourself an absolutely delicious breakfast. Okay. So here we are, we're ready to make our French toast. Our supply is set up here to show you. You really don't need many supplies. For starters, I washed my hands. I sprayed my pan with some cooking spray. It's not necessary, but I do find sometimes that the bread gets stuck on the sides, so you may want to do that. Okay. When we start, we're going to have 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and we're going to pour that. We're going to pour the pan, all right, and you can scrape out a little bit of extra, all right. So we have our pan. I'm going to put it, well, let's put it here for a minute so you can see it. When we're measuring butter, your stick of butter may be labeled on the side. This is 8 tablespoons of butter. 1 stick is 8 tablespoons. Some of the organic butters only label it on the outside. So this would be 2 tablespoons. So you can simply hold your stick against this and see the 2 and would cut it right there. Okay? Most of them are labeled. Mine, the ones I buy, are not. So we have our melted butter in the bottom of our pan. I put my butter in here, put a little saran wrap over it, and microwaved it for 20 seconds. We need to use packed brown sugar. Brown sugar is the only sugar that you would actually tap down. All right, so I'm going to take some. My hands are clean, so I can tap this down. Here is my Sandcastle brown sugar, and you can just take a whisk or a fork and spread these around this way. Now this pan is a great size for 3 or 4 people. If you wanted to double everything up, you would use your 9x13 pan, and it makes a wonderful, wonderful breakfast for a larger group of people. We're going to start. You'd always put 2 layers in. Start by taking 2 whole slices and putting them in the middle of your pan. It's a great size for 3 or 4 people. If you wanted to double everything up, you would use your 9x13 pan, and it makes a wonderful, wonderful breakfast for a larger group of people. We're going to start. You'd always put 2 layers in. Start by taking 2 whole slices and putting them in the middle of your pan. You see my pan here? I'm trying to keep everything in here for you. Okay, there's my pan. And now we have 4 slices left because you need 6 in all for this size. And we're going to take a knife and I want you to be able to see this. Okay, we're going to have the 4 slices here, and you're going to take a knife and cut them on an angle right through the center. Okay, and then we take our pan that we've prepared, and we're going to make a nice little puzzle piece. You put the 2 corners, you put the corners in every corner. And this is going to absorb the nice butter, and it's going to absorb the brown sugars. I see a couple gaps here, and what I ask students to do in school is to take another slice of bread or 2. Let's try it with, well, let's try it with 1 first. And I actually cut that piece of bread just in quart like this at an angle. And I continue my puzzle. So I should have done 2, of course, but that's okay. So I double them up and I put in the nice little triangle pieces. Sometimes you have some that are a little bit tight, but you can gently push them in. You may not need them everywhere. If you had a heel and it's a slightly smaller slice, you could certainly work that in there. If it's just too big, like this one is a little bit too big, I'm just going to trim it up a tad. I just like to have French toast in every bite. So that's completely up to you. So I just made these a little smaller, and you can just nibble. You can nibble on the other pieces. So this way my entire pan is filled with bread. It's 2 layers deep, all right? Or I'm sorry, from Thomas's. Pepperidge Farm makes a wonderful one too. The Market Basket brand, any store that has their own swirl bread, cinnamon swirl bread, is just perfect. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to break 2 eggs. And I like to break my eggs in a separate container. Okay, and the reason for that is if something isn't quite right with the egg, I want to make sure I know about that. Also, if I get any shells in my egg, I make sure that I fish them out. Then I dump that into the bowl. I crack another one. So I know many of my students have their own chicken, so that's even more wonderful. If you have your own fresh eggs. There's nothing in that. Let's say I did put a piece of shell in here. You take half your shell and you simply go in and fish it out. All right? So we're going to put that in there. And I'm going to wash my hands. All right. Now we can take our whisk. All right. And we're just going to whisk this up so you combine the egg. You don't have to do it long as you see it's an even, soft yellow color. Okay. And then we gently going to put in 3/4 cup of milk. You can use whole milk, you can use almond milk, and you want to use a glass cup if you have one, and make sure you have it eye level and you see the 3/4 marking right there. All right. So gently put that in. And the last thing we need to add is a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Always make sure you pour your vanilla extract. This is a 1/2 teaspoon. Okay, make sure it says TSP because that's a teaspoon. Make sure you put your vanilla right, rather than measure it over the bowl, measure it in a smaller container, just in case you overshoot it and you end up with 5 teaspoons of vanilla. That's too much for this. It's also very expensive, so you could pour it back into your bottle. All right, so here's my 1/2 teaspoon. If you don't use salted, I use unsalted butter. If you like a little bit of salt in your things, you could add a pinch of salt. But I think the bread is salty enough for me. So at this point, this is ready to go. We're simply going to pour. We're going to just pour our liquid over the bread. Don't worry about it if it doesn't go everywhere. It will. See, this corner is a little dry, but as this sits at least 4 hours, and otherwise overnight. I usually do it overnight. You obviously would want to refrigerate it if you did it overnight, because there's milk and eggs in it, and you want to make sure they stay cold. The oven just beeped. It smells wonderful. It's been in for 35 minutes. Make sure you have good hot pads. I prefer it if you had an adult take this out. And here's our wonderful French toast casserole. You can let it sit for a little while if you like. Otherwise you can take your pan, and because we put spray on it, you can go around gently around the sides. And the liquid is quite wet out there still, so it might be good to let it sit for a few minutes. Be very careful to have a grown-up flip this for you, please, okay? So I'm going to do this quickly. I'm going to hold on to the pan and the plate. And 1, 2, 3, boom, nothing spilled on me, lucky, good. That's what we like, beautiful. So not too much, a little bit of sugar is left in the bottom, but nothing is sticking, so that's nice. You could simply put that over the center of your, over the center. Here is an absolutely stunning French toast casserole for your family. And what you can do is, some people like to just half it and half it again. So let's do that. I'm just going to cut off a small piece to show you how lovely this is. So this is what people would get at their breakfast table with you. It's piping hot, as you can tell. And you could pour a little bit of maple syrup on it if you like. It really doesn't need very much, because remember, the brown sugar and the butter give it a wonderful sweet coating. And it could be part of a wonderful buffet that you're doing for Christmas morning or some other special holiday. So enjoy. Let me know how you made out with it. Thanks.